It was a really chaotic day. It was a huge scene. And I remember this moment in the middle of all that hubbub that the actor who played the server was like, can I just ask a question? Why can't I hear her when she asks me for the kale salad? And I was like, oh, your ears are not tuned to hear women over 40. And that's how he responded. But so that's how my directions ended up being with this movie. I had an answer for everything. It was all true. There was a reason behind everything. It just might not be the sort of logic that the real world operates in.
Hello, and welcome back to The Director's Cut, brought to you by the Directors Guild of America. In this episode, a mother becomes convinced she has canine capabilities in director Marielle Heller's comedy, Nightbitch. Based on the novel by Rachel Yoder, the film tells the story of a woman who has paused her career to be a stay-at-home mom for her new baby. As she becomes increasingly overburdened with the stress of her new responsibilities, her maternal instincts begin to manifest in canine form. In addition to Nightbitch, Heller's other directorial credits include the feature films A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood and Can You Ever Forgive Me, and episodes of the television series Casual and Transparent. She was nominated for the DGA Award for Outstanding Directorial Achievement in First-Time Feature Film for 2015's The Diary of a Teenage Girl, and was also nominated for the Variety Talk News Sports Specials Award for 2020's What the Constitution Means to Me. Following a screening of the film at the DGA Theater in New York, Heller spoke with director Ritesh Batra about filming Nightbitch. Listen on for their spoiler-filled conversation.
Hi, friends.
Hello, Marielle Heller, everybody. Such an honor.
Thanks for doing this, Ritesh.
Oh, it is my absolute pleasure. We are also friends, so I'm also a big fan and a friend. And I had these questions prepared, but I just saw the movie again and I feel like, I don't know. I have to admit, I always forget the sunscreen. But I will not forget the sunscreen again. My wife is, and I forgot the water today.
Yep.
Yeah.
There's a lot of those little anecdotes that are straight from my real life.
And mine too.
Yes.
Well, so I guess that's a good lead into my first question. I have seldom, or I can't remember when I've seen a movie that was such a great adaptation of a book and also so personal. I can't think of another movie that I've seen that somebody has taken and made their own. Totally. But so should we just start with you telling us how this all began? Because obviously we know this is a famous book, but if that information was just taken away, I would have just thought that you wrote it.
Yeah. And you know me and my children and my husband, so that makes sense that you would think that. So
great guy, by the way. Her husband is a great guy.
Great guy. Very funny. Hates the word night. So it was 2021 and I had just had my second kid and I had moved out of the city during the pandemic to kind of escape New York City while I was pregnant and COVID hit. And we had moved to the woods. We were very isolated and Yorma went back to work before I did. And I ended up getting sent this book by Amy Adams in that moment in time where I was basically not back to work yet, on COVID/maternity leave from my second kid, very isolated and losing my mind. And the book just felt like she had been spying on me. You know, it was one of those reading of a book that I so saw myself in it. It felt so exuberant to read something that felt so reflective of my own experience and my own thoughts. It was also not really written like a movie. It was very much an internal monologue and something that it wasn't an easy adaptation or something that lent to a very simple, translation. So I think I liked that it was a challenge in that way and that it had a lot of room for me to kind of create an entire world based on this really clear voice of this mother character.
You have, I mean, speaking of the internal monologue, you have honored the book because there's this whole kind of, for lack of a better word, flashback. Not even really a flashback. It's kind of a parallel kind of universe of her past, and then there is kind of this Amish Mennonite thing going on, and you don't really dwell into it.
Yeah,
you don't give us a lot of details. The grandma's spells, and actually this is the second time I have had the pleasure of seeing the movie, so I noticed, I was watching it with both my conscious and unconscious mind, so I noticed a lot of things that you did adaptation wise, like you honored the book and somehow didn't explain it a whole lot.
Yeah.
So our attention was completely drawn to the present day story, your story, but at the same time all that was going on. I'm curious about like your first draft of this and how that specific decision came about, that this is going to be present and I'm going to go tell my story and I'm not going to dwell into that a whole lot.
The past story is so not my story. The Mennonite section of this book is not at all my story, but I guess I got excited when I was reading it by what felt like this really clear idea that when you become a parent, it is a bit of a coming of age, and it brings your own family of origin into total focus for you. It's like this experience of suddenly seeing your parents through a totally new lens. I think it can happen if you don't become a parent, but becoming a parent is a particularly swift shift where suddenly you see your parents in a totally new light, the good, the bad. And I've had some dear friends whose parents were no longer with them when they became parents, whose mom particularly wasn't with them when they became a mother. I was in the delivery room for one of my best friends when she became a mother and her mother was no longer living. And there was something so, I don't know, it just felt like it was all of life in that moment. New life coming in, the morning of the loss of her own mother while she became a mother, while she was reborn as a mother and having a daughter. It was just so poignant. So there was this storyline in the book of her mother and her grandmother, and I really kind of latched onto it, and I made it that her mother was no longer alive because I thought that could kind of be the almost inciting incident, even though it's a memory of what makes her really delve into and she's kind of excavating her past and who she was and the person that she was before she became a mother. And that she's maybe been able to suppress all of these thoughts and feelings for a long time. But now that she's a mother and just sitting in the monotony of motherhood, it's like she has to kind of deal with all of these past memories. And Rachel Yoder, who wrote the beautiful book that this is based on, was so generous with letting me shift and change her story, but also gave me all of the details I needed to know and understand about her own past and her own family's story, which she calls it Mennonite, was how she grew up. It was a Mennonite community, but like they weren't too Mennonite. So yeah, she was very helpful with that.
It is also so weird and quirky and also organic. Like you have this whole New York hoity-toity art world and this whole Mennonite world and everything in between existing together. Like the first time I saw the movie, I didn't realize that it's just this wide swath of existence in one movie. It's quite a thing,
I had a lot of fun writing those snobby art friends because that was, my world was like the theater version of that world, but it was all that. And I remember trying to go back to seeing plays after I had my first child and feeling like everybody knew everything and they all were trading. Oh, did you see this show? Did you see that show? Oh, it changed my life. It changed my life. If you missed it, you missed it, kind of mentality, and feeling like I've missed everything. I know nothing. I'm not part of this anymore.
I have to say the movie doesn't feel derivative or in conversation. It's its own thing.
Thank you for remembering that line.
I'm going to use it. Well, tell us about the casting. Because it feels so aptly cast. There's such great parts. Norma's a great part. The husband's a great part. The kids rather are absolutely fabulous. Tell us about your casting process, and I guess it also extends as how you work as a director through your other films.
The twins who play the son in the movie, Arlie and Emmett, I realized that one of the biggest challenges of this movie, but also one of my biggest goals, was to try to capture what felt like an honest parent-child relationship. Because I think I watch movies or TV shows and I see kids and I'm like, that's not a kid. Like, that is not my experience of it being a parent or a kid. But I also wanted that relationship to be as intimate and well-worn and feel as lived in as a marriage that you would see in a movie, that as rehearsed in that way, where you feel like, oh, these people really know each other and love each other so deeply. Because I also feel like I can tell when people aren't someone's parent in a movie. As much as the kid seems like a fake kid actor-y kind of kid, the parent also talks to a kid in a way that a parent never would talk to their own kid. So that was like this sort of invisible trick that I needed to really do all of this work to make seem effortless, like so that Amy and this child, it was twins, could feel like really lived in. So auditioning the twins was actually such a weird experience because we didn't audition actors, and auditioning meant I just hung out in a park and met sets of twins over the course of a day and just spent hours with them, playing with them and rolling on the grass and seeing if they could play and seeing how they would do with call and response and seeing if they could set up like a pretend game and I could make the whole thing into like a little story, and if they could follow it, or if they would get a little devious and I could kind of convince them to do something even by saying, don't do that, or whatever it might be, so that I could make every scene a game to see if I could actually get the performance that I needed out of them. So that was that casting process, very different. These twins had never acted before. We found them on a twin forum on Facebook and they came to meet me, and their parents were wonderful, and they were so perfect. They were real kids, you know, they were rambunctious and silly and funny, but also could take direction and didn't get shy around strangers and all of those things. And the rest of the cast went through the very traditional casting process. Doug Abel, our amazing casting director here in New York, brought in so many wonderful actors like Norma, Jessica Harper, who's amazing, who just came in for an audition. And the real horror fans on set were like starstruck, could not believe she was there. She's from the original Suspiria. Everyone was like, oh my God. She was just incredible. And I had a lot of fun casting the ladies in Book Babies and then casting their dog counterparts because the three dogs, I don't know if everyone got that, but the three dogs in the park all add up to the three moms too. So first I cast the mothers and then had to cast dogs according to the mothers. So
this is a stupid question. I'm sorry, I have to ask, but like after the shoot, all those ladies got to take their paintings?
No, of course they didn't. It's one of those annoying things about making movies, right? Everyone should get to take everything home, but instead they insist you keep everything in a locked warehouse for a year in case there are reshoots, right? It's like an insurance thing. And then who knows what happens? I don't even know where the paintings are at this point. It's
I always
so sad.
take a piece of clothing.
You do?
Yeah. But tell me something like a related question to the casting. When you're writing a movie for Amy Adams or a movie star, do you have her in mind?
So she brought me the book. So she was involved from the very beginning. So this is the only time I've done that where I've written a script knowing who I was writing it really specifically for. And our early conversations were just all about our lives and motherhood and balancing work and our lives. And she was so relatable and had no agenda around it and she just kind of said, I loved this book. I love you as a filmmaker. See if it sparks for you and see if there's anything you can, if you have a vision for it, because I don't know what it could be. And that was sort of the perfect thing because I didn't feel like I was writing it with anyone looking over my shoulder. I had a lot of freedom and also but I had her voice in my head where I could write with her in mind, and just knowing how relatable she is and how much she goes there and is just, she's so emotionally present. Emotions are just like right under the surface, which I felt like was key for these kind of quick turns between sort of humor and anger and rage and all of that.
No, you use that device. That's a lovely device. Like,
Yeah.
it's so brave. It's so brave.
It was fun.
And changing a little track from the actors a little bit, like you have so many loyal, regular collaborators.
Yes.
Like when I just sit back and, just being a New York person like you, I recognize so many of these people and their names. And I've met some of them. They're so lovely.
Yeah.
Like, and they've worked with you from movie to movie, like Arjun and Anne. And so, especially when you're prepping a movie, but like how do you work together with various departments?
I do work with the same people over and over again. My costume designer, Arjun, this is our third movie together. Same with Anne McCabe, my editor, my DP. This was our third movie together, Brandon. I've worked with my brother, who's my composer, Nate, on all 4 of my movies. He also played the leader of the book Babies in the movie.
Oh, wow.
Yes. And Howard Parr, who's my music supervisor, who also has worked on all 4 movies with me. I mean, the great thing about working with people over and over again is that you can actually depend on them and know that they're wonderful at their jobs. And I think it frees me up to be able to focus on all of the unknowns and all of the things I need to work on when I know I can really trust the people that I'm working with so completely. I think they all know that for me, it's always character first and story first, and that all of the artistry and all of the craft and all of the decisions we're making have to kind of tie in somehow to character and story. That's always first before anything looks cool or would be a pretty shot or a pretty outfit or anything like that. It always has to be like, what's this telling us about the character, and how are we telling this story in as many layers as we can, but making it seem not heavy-handed. I just feel so lucky that I get to work with the same people over and over again. I feel very loyal and lucky that they want to keep working with me. And then you get a shorthand, I feel like so much trust with the people that I work with, and that I can explain a scene in purely emotional terms, and that they can translate it to their technical expertise, especially when it comes to like identifying like a LUT or a major look for the film or palettes. It's like, it takes me, my mind doesn't go there immediately. I don't come into a script even knowing like exactly what the color palette will be or anything like that. And it really helps me to have collaborators who I trust, who I can talk things through, and they can show me things and I can be like, that's not it. And we keep digging and keep finding things until we come across the thing that feels so right. And it's often when I'm like, no, that feels too specific to what a space or a time. I want this to feel a little timeless or a little bit like it. You don't know what city it's a suburb outside of. It could be any city with any suburb. How do we like make this feel specific? And like these characters have really specific lives, but we're not also locking them into a year with technology or a certain time or a certain place. And we're keeping this sort of timelessness. We never name the husband's job. We never name, none of the characters have names. Like there was a purposeful kind of ambiguity that we left doors open throughout, but we hoped that it would just feel kind of like a subtle decision throughout too.
Yeah, it's so well detailed too, like down to like when she opens the drawer to take the needle out, when she pricks that thing, and but like you open the drawer and you're like, oh, what's in there, that would be in her drawer.
Yeah.
And then the look of the house is just kind of something between like stuff they've collected and then like stuff that arty people would have in their house.
Right. Because we thought a lot about, this is a couple who's left the city, moved to a suburb. That's a big deal for them. They would try to find a house they thought had cool bones and was really interesting architecturally because they had good taste. They maybe didn't have a huge budget. It's a starter home. They'd find something that was cool though and had some cool bones. And then there's like a layer of baby crap on top of some kind of cool house, and that they traded maybe for art from friends. So they have neat art on the walls, really beautiful art she probably traded her own pieces with other artists she was friends with or collected over the years. And that's, butted up against like a baby gate or whatever it might be.
They also think old stuff is cool. So they have their old Volvo and
yes.
It's just so detailed.
I mean, we looked at 60 houses before we landed on that house, which everybody thought I was nuts because it's like, why is this so hard to find? It's just a house. But because of all of those details and because of what it said about their character, it was so difficult to find the right house. I actually found this house on Zillow, just searching through houses that were for sale. And we approached the people who were selling it and convinced them to let us shoot there.
Well, tell me something else. Like this, you spoke about the adaptation, and then you have been kind of fearless in this movie about just using all the tools of filmmaking. Like we are going into the dog's perspective. Obviously, you have the VFX stuff. You have that really interesting. I mean, it's you've just gone for it. Even in the writing, like she's swapping between her inner voice and her.
Yeah.
And you've just been kind of fearless in sort of putting this together in a review. Do you feel that way too? Like just
I
because
do
I've
feel
seen your
that
previous
way.
movies as well. So
Yeah, I mean, I feel like along the way as I was writing it, definitely I could feel people kind of thinking like, just do one thing. Like just do one thing with the movie. If you're gonna, it can't be this many, I don't know, ideas. But for me, it felt like, no, this feels emotionally right. I can't explain it from a logical point of view. I can just tell you this is how it felt, how it feels to be a new mother. This is how this particular brand of losing my mind has felt to me. So things like her speaking out loud and not looking in the lens, but just speaking out loud and nobody can hear her. That came out of a very emotional place, which is this feeling of being an aging woman and nobody listening to you anymore, or feeling like you're speaking and people don't hear you. And it was like, how do I embody this idea that I feel so present in my own life, not just because my kids ignore me, but also just to feel yourself fading as a beautiful woman who the world listens to less and less as you age, and how weird it feels to feel yourself not being listened to in the world, and how much that makes you retreat into your own kind of internal narration of the world. But so like even that idea versus having voiceover. And I loved this idea that I was just going to kind of float between the two of them. Sometimes something's in voiceover and sometimes she's just speaking out loud. And that freaked people out. Or like having these flashes where she would slap the husband or return to something. Everybody wanted me to like signal to the audience, like make a little sound so we know that's not real, or make a little, like do something to signal to us that that was a fantasy. And I'm like, I think audiences are smarter than that. And I think the experience is more interesting if everyone's kind of having to figure it out as you go along. And I think everyone will figure it out. And we haven't had any issue around that. But I think there's this frustrating trend in our business that the majority of notes we get are about clarity, that clarity is the value we're all seeking. Like, how do we make everything the clearest it can be? And I didn't want everything to be clear with this movie. I liked the ambiguity. I liked that people would hopefully leave the theater and go, so did she really turn into a dog? Was this real? What happened? Mm-hmm. That there would be a discussion and an argument. And I've had people in Q&As trying to like pin me down. Like, what does it mean? Why did you do that? What was that choice about? And I love that. Like, I won't answer it when people ask me in Q&As because I like that there's a certain level of ambiguity. And I just had to, as I created the world, just had to kind of push against that idea of people wanting everything to be so hyper clear, which I think in the literary world, probably people don't feel as much pressure.
Yeah. But it does. You're absolutely right, because like in the scene in the restaurant, when she goes, kale
salad
with the kale and the burger, and I'm like, no, she didn't. And it doesn't really matter. I mean, of course she did. And then when her friends show up in the end, I'm like, oh yeah, maybe, she didn't, but
yeah.
But it's. I
mean, I had my own set of rules of what did happen and what didn't, but I also loved that this was a world with different rules. We weren't in the regular world in that way. It was like a world building exercise, even though it's obviously we're not in like a Marvel universe or something, but we are in a different universe.
Yeah. But, I'll ask one more question. I want to open it up to the audience for questions, but, when you're writing something like this and when you're directing it, and not just people who are asking you for clarity, but also actors on set, asking you like, well, what does she want? Mm-hmm. Or, of course, Amy's probably worked up her own reasons and you don't want to meddle with that, but you also want to be prepared,
Oh, yeah.
So how do you, because the movie, like, you can't tell the next turn. You can't tell what's going to happen next, right? Like, what does she want? Like, it doesn't really matter. And also it does, but.
No, I always have the answer to those questions for sure. I mean, I remember that kale salad scene. There was a very specific moment where it was a really chaotic day. It was a huge scene. That scene was pivotal to me. It was like, we have to get this tone. It was so tricky, such a tightrope walk. And we had so many extras, and it was in a real restaurant that we had shut down. There was like no space to move around. It was very crowded. And I remember this moment in the middle of all that hubbub that the actor who played the server in the restaurant was like, can I just ask a question? Why can't I hear her when she asks me for the kale salad? And I was like, oh, your ears are not tuned to hear women over 40. And that's how he responded. He was like, oh, that's my motivation? Like, that's what you're giving me as a direction? But it was like, yeah. And then I was like, moving on. And a number of crew members came up to me afterwards and was like, that really hit me when you said that to that actor. I didn't even really realize anyone heard me say it to him. It was just an actor asking exactly for his motivation. Like, I just want to understand my intention behind this moment. But so that's how my directions ended up being with this movie. Like, I had an answer for everything. It was all true. There was a reason behind everything. It just might not be the sort of logic that the real world operates in. And so if Amy would ask me a question, it was all connected. Every bit of the movie was so connected to so many different ideas and things that she and I had also discussed about isolation and feeling this loss of identity. And I could find that emotional reason for everything that existed, if that makes sense.
No, absolutely. Also, like, she's taking a real, so many chances here in every scene, right? I mean, every actor does in every movie, but... No, she's taking a lot of chances. Yeah, and she's got a completely, I mean, it's much credit to you. She's got to have such immense trust in you to do that.
Totally.
Together, yeah. Do people have questions? Go ahead, please.
I wrote this film with a very kind of specific pace in my mind, which I think I tend to do. I tend to hear things. I was talking about how I don't always see a color palette when I'm writing, but I do tend to hear pace in a script. Like, I think it goes back to my theater background, and I think about how Shakespeare said you go to hear a play in Shakespeare's time instead of saying going to see a play. The first sense was, no, you're going to go hear a play. And I think I hear a script more than I see a script. So I had sort of very specific pacing in mind for certain sections, including awkward silences and moments where there would be no music or it would feel tense or whatever. But also like the opening hash brown sequence, which I feel like nobody quite understood in the script form until they saw it. And then everyone was like, oh, that's why we did that so many times. But I was like, no, I had it all mapped out in my head of how that timing would work and why it would feel, how it would make you feel, hopefully, as an audience member. And then Anne McCabe, who's my incredible editor, who we've worked together 3 times now, she just understood the movie on such a deep human level too. She's a mom of 3 kids. It brought her so back to her early mom days. And she's also an editor who actually reads the script. She really, truly reads every stage direction to like see my intention before even putting together the first assembly, which I've now talked to a number of directors who say like, oh, that's not normal. Like, editors always skip through stage directions, but like, she's like mining it the way a dramaturg would mine a play. She's saying like, what are the clues here? Like, what is the intention behind this scene and how it should play timing wise? And she's really, even before I get into the edit room, she usually she's editing while we shoot and then has about a week to put it together in assembly before I come into the edit. But I feel so honored by her in that way, that she's actually really looking at what I've written to kind of try and...
It was just a lovely rhythm and flow. Like the hash browns, her laying on the couch 3 times. It's all...
Yeah.
It's just lovely. And much credit to your brother too. Like,
yes.
Because I don't remember the score, and that's a sign of a good score.
I agree.
You do not remember it at all.
It never should be something that you overly think about, but should make you, if the movie works emotionally, then the score works. Yeah. I know. He's getting much more credit. I think he's getting much more credit for creating What's Up With That Duck, because that's the song that sticks in people's head, than his very beautiful score, which, drifts in and out throughout the entire movie. But that's because What's Up With That Duck is a terrible earworm.
Does anyone have another question? Because I have one more or a couple more. Go ahead, please.
I'm going to just repeat the first comment, which was about how hard it is to be honest with other mothers about how hard it is and the monotony and how much you might regret it. And I guess I sort of hoped this movie would be an opening for people to be more honest as well. A bit of an antidote to Instagram culture and the sort of version of mommyhood that we're fed through media, because it doesn't serve us. It doesn't serve us that we're fed only this one version of it, or some versions of it that just, to me, never felt fully honest. And I wouldn't have survived the 10 years of parenthood that I've had so far if I didn't have other people to talk to very bluntly and honestly about all of the good and the bad. I mean, from the like, oh my God, did I screw my whole life up? And is this a big mistake? Or I can't handle this, or I miss working and I didn't think I would miss working. But also like, oh God, my kid has a rash. What is this? Can I send you a picture of his balls or something? Like somebody who you can be really like gross with too, and talk about all this body stuff that's happening and all of the, it's such a gross experience being a parent. And I think having people who you can be honest with about it's crucial. I don't know how people do it who don't have that, because I rely on the other parents in my life so fully. And I also crowdsource any problem that I'm going through with my kids with other parents who I trust, who I think are smart and interesting and thoughtful and are trying to parent in maybe ways that our parents didn't parent. We're all trying to do it better than we feel like it was done before. And we're all trying, whatever it is, but it's so helpful to talk to other people or even just to witness other good parents. And yeah. We've parented together.
Good. Well, yeah. I am
your stepdaughter.
Yeah, my stepdaughter. The thing is that you got so many other things right too, aside from obviously the core things you're talking about. You got the divorce single dad thing right. You got that self-delusion manipulation in an argument right when he says, "Where is my wife gone?" And
well, yeah,
that was really good.
That scene was the scene, and I think Rachel Yoder is okay with me saying this, but was the scene that didn't exist in the book that I wanted to exist in the book. Was like her holding his feet to the fire and asking for accountability, and like it fully exploding. And then as I wrote it, I realized I wrote her entire side of the argument, and then was like, I think I have to give him an argument. Mm-hmm. And then I gave him all the worst things I could imagine my husband saying to me.
Yeah. There's no such thing as too much honesty, but that was too much honesty.
Yeah.
But
Yorma might say that was too much honesty. But
can I ask you a more global question? Because this is one of the great movies of the year, or of the past several years, I think. And it's such a great year for movies. So that's much credit to you. It's so beautiful. What's it feel like, just from director to director? Like it's been a tough couple of years for the business. And there was like maybe at the beginning of the pandemic or just before, where everybody was like, the future is in episodic storytelling. And there's elevated episodic. And now it feels like movies are coming back, or they've always been there. And it just feels like this adaptation makes such great use of the movie form. We spoke about rhythm and flow and all the decisions you made between the past and the present. And like, there's no other form, I think, that can tell, like, go from Mennonite culture to hoity-toity New York culture and like make it look all one thing. Like, but what do you think about like movies? Like as an artist, like where would you invest your energies in? And is movies your primary thing? I know you've also done theater. And I would be remiss not to ask what are you doing next?
I won't answer what I'm doing next, but I will say that movies are the thing that I love the most and that I want to make. And it never changed for me. I felt like the business was moving toward episodic, and I have dipped my toe in the TV world for sure, but I love the length of storytelling with a movie, and I love how complete a story can be and how thoughtful and conscientious each choice can be around the entire thing, versus sometimes if something's, an unlimited episodic, you kind of can't thread together all of the pieces back into one. And I like the form. I love movies, and I love movie theaters, and I love people seeing movies in a group and people having a collective experience of going to the movies. And I don't know, I hope that we have a resurgence of smart adult movies too, that are not just big franchises, where we can go to the movies still and see movies like this that are smaller and human and make us feel less alone and are not all beautiful and fake and all CG. I don't know. That's my hope for this next phase as we come out of our strikes and we're into the next phase of making content, which is like the worst phrase I've ever heard, but making things that, I don't know, we can return to some of the things we love the most about why we wanted to become filmmakers, why we wanted to become directors in our life. It was because of some great movie, most likely.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't feel small at all to me. It's so beautiful, and it's so beautifully adapted and so masterfully directed. So
thank you.
Thank you for sharing it, and thank you all for coming.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Ritesh.
Thanks for listening to another DGA Q&A. The Director's Cut is available wherever you listen to podcasts. And please share, subscribe, rate, and review. We'd love to hear your feedback, and you can help fellow film buffs find the show. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time. This podcast is produced by the Directors Guild of America.